For the second time, the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli and Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS have come together for an 8-hour endurance test at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's now approaching time to set the provisional grid for Sunday's 8-hour race, with the top 15 from this session advancing to the pole shootout later today. Hello everyone, welcome to the racing capital of the world. My name is Ryan Marie, and along with Bob Varsha, Calvin Fish, and Amanda Busick, it is a pleasure to have your company getting ready for qualifying. Positions 16 and further will be set in this session, Calvin, with a unique format that takes into account the speed of all three drivers across these lineups.
Yeah, as you said, 16 through, the rest of the field is locked in. The top 15 going to a pole shootout here a little bit later in the afternoon, where they'll select one of their drivers during a 15-minute shootout. But during these sessions, there are 15 minutes for each of the three drivers, with a 7-minute break between driver 1 and 2, and an 8-minute break between driver 2 and 3. Few things to note here. There's no computers allowed to be hooked up, no refueling, no changes to the race car. You are allowed to change tires in between each run. So effectively, you're going to see the cars as heavy as they'll be in this first run, because the fuel has to last for all three runs here during this 1-hour session.
You always wonder about the significance of qualifying ahead of an endurance race, but you look at this track layout and some of the history headed down to turn 1 over the years on the first lap of a race, and you have to think that starting up front might be very beneficial. Let's welcome in Amanda Busick, who's down in the pit lane as we get ready for qualifying.
Well, guys, while I still have my jacket on, the temperatures have increased a little bit since this morning, with a chilly 48 degrees here in Indianapolis. But as you can see behind me, the pagoda, the grandness here at Indianapolis. Drivers been talking about it all morning. Actually, behind the pagoda, there was a driver autograph session just a couple of hours ago. But all the pomp and circumstance, time to put that aside and go qualifying. The average of the three drivers will lead qualifying. Who's going to be the best overall team? That's the question that will be answered here in qualifying.
We'll find out very soon. Thank you so much, Amanda. Great venue for this race, Bob. The second time that the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli has raced here at Indianapolis, and it's the biggest grid we've seen in a North American round of the championship in its history.
Twice the size of last year, big European presence. Most of the titles have been decided, but there are still some at stake. And as Amanda said, it's a beautiful day here. That early morning sheen of rainwater has now fully evaporated. This track has baked in the sunlight for a while. Temps are in the mid-50s. It's just beautiful. And as you can see, the cars are lined up echelon style there. SRO wants to put on a show, and I think we're going to see a great one.
Had a big show in downtown Speedway just outside of the track premises yesterday. Many of these cars were on display, parked along the main street. Big concert, big fan turnout. There's a lot of buzz and excitement about this event. Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli. This is a 3-round championship this year, trotting the globe, starting off with the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa. Alessandro Pierguidi, Com Ledegar, and Nicholas Nielsen prevailed there, and they carry the points lead into the second round of the championship here at Indianapolis. The season wraps up in South Africa at Kyalami. 3 massively historic racing venues, and a perfect idea for a championship to go across the globe and challenge customer racing squads from so many of these GT3 manufacturers.
Yeah, it's a wonderful championship. Obviously, we've lost a couple of the events, Bathurst and Fuji, due to the COVID restrictions this year. Ideally would have been a 5-race championship this year. But I alluded to it. The cool conditions. This racetrack is going to be super fast right now. So perfect conditions. A little bit windy out there, but I don't think that'll have too much effect on these race cars this afternoon.
The forecast called for wind gusts up around 20 to 25 miles per hour. We'll see if that affects any of these teams or drivers. They set them loose for the first of 3 15-minute qualifying sessions.
And clearly, everybody anxious to get on track. You've only got 15 minutes. You got to keep the car in one piece, because your 2 co-drivers have yet to get their turn in the car. They'll have their own 15-minute sessions, but you've got to get the job done. Lap times here about 1:35 or so you're not going to get many push laps in order to put your car as far up the grid as you can.
Saw the point standings for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. As mentioned, this is the finale for the North American SRO Championship as well. A race within a race. The first 3 hours of the Indy 8-hour tomorrow pay the points that will settle many of the final finishing positions in the various classes. The championships, though, all wrapped up, Calvin, going back to 2 weeks ago at Sebring.
Yes, they are, but Taylor Hagler, they're out early in the 93 Racers Edge car. She's sitting second in the points, so certainly those first 3 hours will be important to her tomorrow and the whole team. And that team rebounding from a gearbox issue, a transmission issue earlier in the day, so a lot of work has been going on in the paddocks to get all of these cars ready for this run. 15
minutes might sound like a lot, but really, you don't have that many chances, and now it's that search for clean track. Where can you sort yourself out in this big pack of cars, 39 in all, that are taking part in this session in order to allow you to put down a representative lap time?
I think that's going to be the key, getting a clear lap when the tires are at their peak. I mean, there is the option of coming in and switching to a different set of tires. All of your tires will be deleted to that point, but essentially driver changes and tire changes are the only things that you'll see during the next 60 minutes with these 3 15-minute segments.
Speaking of the GT World Challenge America Championship, this car has dominated the pro category all season long. Jordan Pepper has been a big part of that. The South African driver behind the wheel of the number 3 machine for K-Pax Racing, making the switch from Bentley last year to Lamborghini and making it look easy.
9 wins on a championship season. We expected a lot from that squad, but even so, that is a dominant year.
And a fantastic driver lineup with Jordan Pepper teamed with his full season teammate Andrea Caldarelli and Mirko Bortolotti, brought in to complete the trio for the 8 hours this weekend. That's probably the favorite from the North American contingent, working through the GT4 traffic, now behind a Pro-Am car, the SRO Motorsports Lamborghini. That's the brightly colored car just ahead, but a spin. This is the silver entry, at least as far as the 8-hour goes, of Wright Motorsports, the champions in the Pro-Am category in the American Championship this year.
That's not ideal because it's so easy to flat spot a tire there with a spin like that, so they'll have to regroup and make sure they're not feeling any vibration.
That was Fred Poordad who went around.
As we say, relatively cool conditions. They bring these tires straight out of the ovens. The 5-minute protocol, they have to have the cars back on the deck with 3 minutes to go, but even so, they're not up to the optimum pressures and temperatures, so Fred just got caught out there. Hopefully they can rebound and get a good qualifying run in.
First times coming in, none of them totally clean, so not at all representative, but Taylor Hagler did set provisionally the fastest time. Now, though, we're starting to see some fast ones up on the board. Corey Lewis and Jordan Pepper, 1 and 2, the K-Pax Racing teammates, but still a lot of time to be found as several teams elect to head to the pit lane here early in the going.
The fast time so far, 136.9. We saw a 134 flat earlier today, remarkably from the 89 team, the ACA ASP Mercedes-AMG team, with a car that they only got in the early hours here this morning, Ryan.
Exactly right. That car was held up in customs as they tried to ship it with sea freight. It ended up in Norfolk, Virginia, stuck in the port there. They had to drive it overnight, prepare that car. They did it quickly in pre-qualifying, got out on track and set the fastest time, courtesy of Raffaele Marciello. This, though, is the hero of the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa, Alessandro Pierre Guidi, with that memorable pass around Dries Vanthoor at Blanchimont late in the race in the rain. And he and that same driver lineup, Côme Ledegar and Nicholas Nielsen, joining him back and looking to back up that win here on North American soil.
Here comes Jordan Pepper aboard that number 3 Lamborghini Huracan. Great news for them was by sealing the title at Sebring, it's allowed them to really just focus forward on the 8-hour. You don't have to be worried about the constraints of running to the 3-hour protocols. They can run whatever driver lineup they like. You can see the purple sector there for Sector 1. That means this is the fastest of any of the drivers out there on the racetrack. Personal's best, Sector 2. You'd expect that to continue. 34.7, so within 3/4 of a second of the fastest time of the day so far. Red flag is out.
Look for what the cause of this is, but the clock will continue. We've got the beached car. This is a Pro-Am Challenge entry. EBM Motorsports off track there in the gravel. This is in a different part of the racetrack than was utilized last year. That's right around the turn 6 portion. Last year there was the quick chicane that has been used by IndyCar and other series in recent years. Next time they're using this loop that was used by Formula One. Let's see if we can get an eye on what transpired. There's the car in the background.
Yeah, that's going into turn 6, entry to turn 6 between 5 and 6 is De Silva behind the wheel, I believe. This car fielded by EBM Motorsports, Earl Bamber Motorsports. Bit of a Porsche legend himself. He's taken an overall victory at Le Mans and many GT championships for the Porsche brand.
Now this is why it's so important to go out and put down a fast lap early, because this time is ticking away rapidly.
Exactly my point. Top of your screen, the clock keeps ticking.
And there's a big delta between the front 3 or 4 cars than the rest of the pack. And remember what Amanda alluded to, it's done on the average, so it's tough to make up. If you suddenly give someone a second and a half in hand with the first driver run, it's hard for the driver 2 and 3 to make any of that gap back up.
This should be a quick cleanup, so this is an unlikely scenario based on this red alone, but there are several cars, including some front runners, the ACA ASP car being one of them, that have not registered a lap time yet, and that is important because, again, it is the average of the 3 drivers across this qualifying format that determines the position, and if for whatever reason one of your drivers does not set a lap time, you have to start at the back behind every other lineup that did have all 3 cars participate. That was a big deal at the 24 Hours of Spa. A couple of cars were caught out by that, and here this is one that is in that position. The number 32 from WRT, certainly the number 37 from WRT has not yet registered a lap time, and there's a few others in that category too.
Significant in practice and qualifying. If you do see a red flag, you have to return to the pit box. So your pit allocation suddenly becomes super important. If you're at pit in, you've basically got to roll out there behind 38 other cars.
What is the transit delta in the pit lane, Calvin?
53 seconds. So that costs you basically 45 seconds from pit in to pit out. You got 45 seconds less to work with because you're being released that little bit later.
This is the 89 ACA ASP car. I was talking about this, though, the car that was stranded. Out of the gravel, dropping some gravel, it appears, but able to be freed from that trap, so that's good news. And hopefully this red flag won't last long, but it's going to be a gold rush of epic proportions when they release these cars.
They're going to be on it big time.
Already lost about 3 minutes from this 15-minute session.
And you think about, you still have to do the out lap. We're looking at over a minute and a half there before you can start your first flying lap.
You'll be lucky if you get 3 laps in for this session, I would think.
Yep.
So a lot of pressure on those cars and teams that have yet to post times. Those that did early are feeling good about it. K-Pax Racing with Jordan Pepper at the top of the leaderboard. Christopher Hassep in one of the beautiful Audis. Mikael Grenier, the top Pro-Am runner. Sun Energy won the team, 3rd overall, but tops in Pro-Am. And the Santoloc Junior team, quickest in silver with 6th overall. At the moment, GT4, we should mention that too, unlike Spa, which was a GT3 only affair. There are some GT4 cars in the field, 13 of them in total, and Jason Hart from NOLA Sport, the Pro-Am champion in Pirelli GT4 America, has the fastest time, and here we go.
The Oklahoma Land Rush.
Look out.
The outlap will take about 2 minutes, and you see that Mercedes on the inside wanting to get to the front of the queue for clear air.
That was Mikael Grenier in the Sun Energy 1 car that he shares with Kenny Habel.
So it's white knuckle time for this first of 3 individual qualifying sessions.
There's going to be some risk taken right now. I know it's only qualifying, and how important is that with an 8-hour race, but certainly you want to be making that top 15, and there's a few of these teams that are really regarded as potential pole sitters outside of that top 15 shootout mark right now with a lot of work to do. Again, it's based on the average of all 3 drivers, but if you're giving up 2 to 3 seconds right now, potentially, that's going to make it awfully tough to come back and get inside that top 15 by the end of the qualifying hour.
And think of the guys who are in there. Raffaele Marcello in the Mercedes, 2-time pole sitter at the Spa 24 Hours. Robin Freintz, great international star. Paul Holton in the McLaren, has been quick all weekend.
This is Marciello working to the inside of Fred Portad, who had the spin earlier. Pro-Am car as far as the American Championship goes, silver in the 8-hour. That's Holton up the inside of the Crucial Motorsports McLaren, and somehow he made that work. That's how important the track position is, though, with under 4 minutes left in Q1.
It's going to take total commitment right now. This will be fun to watch.
Here comes Marciello up onto the bank. He might be the fastest GT3 driver anywhere on the planet. There's several in this field that would contest that, but I think you could make a strong case. Doesn't have a time banked yet, so he is off on a flyer, and you can see how hard he's pushing.
A little bit of a lock up there. Pressure's, temperature's not right there, but he knows he doesn't have much time to work with. Got to keep pushing hard. Got to load this car, even though it's not up to it. Load the car, get those temperatures up. If you kind of take it too easy, it's just going to take longer to get into the sweet spot.
This is the team that put all that effort in a 1,200-mile drive that took 2 different truck drivers working in tandem in shifts just to get this car here. The drivers have been in a car already this weekend running a spare chassis from DXDT Racing, but back at home in their main car. And they were fast in practice, but no time yet.
Green in Sector 1, which means it's Marciello's best of the session, but he didn't have a previous Sector 1.
We're seeing a lot of green up and down the board as those purples we're going to be looking for.
Second sector coming up.
This is coming through turn 11 into a deep brake zone, turn 12.
Purple meets quickest of all in that sector.
And by a sizable margin, as you can see on the graphic on screen.
Key is going to be this next flying lap. Does he catch Taylor Hagler here on this lap, and then will that compromise his lap time any?
It shouldn't on this lap at least. Maybe even a bit of a slipstream out of turn 14 across the line. Is it good enough? Provisionally, yes. Marciello to the top of the leaderboard, but it is now a leaderboard in flux.
Yeah, great lap time there, within 4 or 5 tenths of what we saw as the fastest lap this morning during pre-qualifying. That was a 90-minute session. Expect people to be getting into the mid-33s, ideally, I would suspect here. Perfect conditions right now, other than the fact you've got traffic to deal with. Here comes Freins to the line. Just outside the 135 flat brag, 135.4, currently 7th.
That's big for that car because he's one that had not yet set a time prior to that lap.
Puts the banker in. Don't take any risk. Make sure you get at least 1 lap on the board. Now he's going to be pushing hard. All of these cars coming across the line now. This will be their last lap.
We saw that big move from Paul Holton to try and get the track position. He made it pay off. He has the 3rd fastest time in that brand new operation, Crucial Motorsports from down in Florida. Currently 3rd, but still the bulk of the field on their last flying lap or something close to it.
Car he knows well. He campaigned that car with Compass Racing here in North America before, so a lot of work to get that together. They've been working hard on their pit stops. They believe they have the speed. It's going to be all about execution here tomorrow for 8 hours.
This is Dries Van Goor, Team WRT Audi. The preeminent Audi operations anywhere on the planet. One of the best Audi drivers on the planet in the car right now.
Not a great first sector. You can see he's 6 tenths down as we see another one of the Audis off and on. Coming through that high-speed sweeper there. That's coming out of turn 10. That's turn 11. Van Tor over 2nd off the pace. This is not the run they were looking for.
No.
See, the time has adjusted. The time just went back up, guys.
I think you're right.
Added time to the session?
I did. Yeah, we were down at 1:20 or something when we were watching cars come across the stripe, so I think they've put a bit more time on the board for this first sector run.
It's just come up on the official texting. Session has been extended by 2 minutes.
That is massive.
Jeez. Now keep in mind, it's not this lap by each of these drivers that will determine the starting position. Each of their teammates will also get a 15-minute session, and then the average of their quickest laps will determine their starting position.
I wonder how deep into this run it was before the teams got notification. I just noticed it changed up on the screen. It's like, what happened there?
Well, to your point, Marciello is in the pits, as is Jordan Pepper, and they are dropping down the order as Alessio Rovera just jumped to third, dropping Pepper to fourth, and Lucas Stoltz from Craft Bamboo Racing a few moments ago went to P1.
Tell you what, that is a curveball. Think about setting your tire pressures for that run. If you think, oh, we've only got a couple of laps to do it, let's go out on extreme tire pressures. Suddenly you could hit that peak, and suddenly you hear, listen, you've got 2 more minutes to run.
Oh, Paul Holton's got his hands full. That car was sliding through this infield portion of the road course on the south end of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A good first sector, not a great second sector. What does the third look like for Paul Holton?
Oh, not good. 3/10 down on his best, so maybe he's another driver who's peaked those tire pressures a little bit.
That's a great point, Calvin, that the driver was all set for a last lap that turned out not to be their last lap.
And that will drive the teams absolutely crazy. I mean, I understand the reasoning. There wasn't much time in this session. You have that 7-minute break between qualifying driver number 1 and driver number 2. But to get that information when you're already deep into a run is certainly a big, big curveball for these teams.
Robin Freins a few moments ago just jumped to 5th. Christopher Haase had a good first sector, dropped a half a second in the second sector. Here he comes, Audi Sport Team Santalok driver to the Art of Bricks. He'll still have one more flying lap to work with, and he'll need it. That was not great, and now he's caught GT4 traffic. That's not what the doctor ordered.
This is less than perfect. Tough through this first sector here to get through there clean, not compromise your lap time.
That lap by Lucas Stoltz in the Mercedes, 1:33.976 is the quickest lap I believe we've seen all weekend.
It is. 34 flat this morning in pre-qualifying. These two AF Corsa Ferraris look identical, but look for the side view mirrors. This is the 51 car, has black side view mirrors. The 71 car looks identical. See a little bit of yellow on the 71 car on those side view mirrors if you're trying to ID both cars.
And the 71 is the one that jumped to third with Rovera driving. This is Pierre Guidi, who had a personal best in Sector 2 to claw a little bit closer. He's a bit further down the order than you would have expected. Down in 10th, looked like he caught some traffic there in turns 12 and 13. The traffic, though, peeled off to the pit lane. We'll see if it held him up too much. Pierre Guidi out of turn 14. You see the pole time, 1:33.976 across the line. It's a personal best, 1:34.979. That does improve his time, but not his position. Still P10.
Yeah, and a second off, so that's the gap that his teammates now have to work with and try and minimize. Remember, it's top 15 you're looking for, so top 10 right now is not a disaster.
That's right. Top 15 will be involved in a single driver pole shootout session at the end of the day. No improvement from Van Thor. It seems to be the trend. Not a lot of movement late in this run. The checkered flag flies.
Well, there's a real art and science to those starting pressures when you're going out on a short burst run like they were doing. So I got a feeling a lot of these teams kind of exceeded their ideal temperature range and pressure range there, even that extra lap or two that they were given.
I wonder if they were caught out at all by the fact that this track has been in direct sunlight for hours now. That means radiant energy in the form of heat in the track that may upset the calculations a bit.
It's evolving, certainly.
Results from Q1, and it is Mercedes 1-2 with Craft Bamboo Racing, the Hong Kong-based team with its first race outside of the Asia Pacific since the COVID pandemic. An impressive performance from Lucas Stoltz to top Raffaele Marciello in that session. Then the Ferrari of Alessio Rovera. Jordan Pepper from K-Pax Racing, the top North American team. They're fourth. Robin Freins for Audi, fifth. A little bit further down the order, it's where you'll find some of the Silver Cup competitors, and down to GT4 where Jason Hart backed up the speed he showed earlier in the section, claiming provisional pole in that class by a very narrow margin over John Jesbray. Let's get an update from the pit lane here as we transition from Q1 to Q2 with Amanda.
And Ryan, we're with the 89. Raffaele Marciello was behind the wheel, and I'm sure a bit of a strange qualifying session, especially with the red flag. Are you happy with your qualifying effort?
Yeah, I mean, we just have to qualify for Super Pole, so it's quite easy. There are not so many cars going into Super Pole, so we just have to do a clean lap and it's fine.
You're giving a lot of feedback to Danny on your run, moving your hands a lot. What were you relaying to Danny?
Yeah, I mean, the car is, we didn't do so many laps because we got the car this morning, so we have to work quite a bit in the car, so there is still a lot of to do.
Real-time adjustments on the fly here.
supreme confidence out of that young man.
And the key is when you get to the pole shootout, all of the times go away.
Right.
So you're starting from scratch
Right.
again. So as long as you make this, a bit like Formula One qualifying, doesn't matter if you're, you know, 10th or 11th or 10th. It doesn't matter. You're going to reset.
Get to the next session. And if you were thinking about tire wear, no sweat. Every driver gets a fresh set of Pirellis for his 15-minute effort.
And that is true for those that qualify for Super Pole as well, so that does not become a disadvantage with the tire allotment for the weekend as a whole.
And to your point, Calvin, about the track evolving, we had heavy overnight rains, washed the track clean. There's been lots of practice and racing thus far today, so more rubber goes down, the track gets quicker. It'll be interesting to watch the evolution of the times in the second, third, and even the pole shootout session. I expect them to get quicker and quicker.
And as we said, you're not allowed to refuel, so you have to put enough fuel on board to get through all 3 segments, so the starting weight of the car is much higher. And weight is time. Lighter race car goes faster.
Some of the names we'll be seeing in Q2, Mauro Engel, Callum Eilont, the IndyCar-bound Ferrari Jr., Andrea Caldarelli, Mattia Drudi, Marcus Winkelhock, Colm Ledegar, on down the line, Giovanni Venturini. I mean, it is a massive grid and a wonderful collection of GT driving talent.
Okay, so they have a little break now, so this next segment should start 22 minutes after the hour, so we're getting pretty close to that. So it'll be a tight turnaround. It's not as leisurely as normal because we gave all of those first segment drivers an extra couple of minutes.
And it does appear that they have given an extra 2 minutes in this interim period as well. That message just coming in from race control. We're now looking at a 2:24 p.m. Eastern time start to Q2. It was a shot at the NOLA Sport Porsche, provisional pole sitter in the GT4 class. Big season for them in Pirelli GT4 America this year, and an interesting component to this race weekend to give some of those GT4 teams a chance to fight on the big stage here as part of a global event like the Indianapolis 8 Hours.
Yeah, really solid GT4 field. 13 cars will take place in the 8 hour. Lost a couple of our GT3 runners, unfortunately. G3, Ian Lacey Racing, they had a big hit yesterday in a wet practice session, so that car had to be withdrawn. And then unfortunately, we're just getting news that Turner Motorsports look like they're going to withdraw the 96 entry, which had Connor DeFilippi, one of the defending class winners here from last year, who will not be seeing action here tomorrow. Michael Dynan, one of their drivers, has been feeling unwell all weekend long. Did a quick stint today, wasn't feeling up to it, and we believe at least that team will not be participating in qualifying or even making the green flag tomorrow.
And the team stressed that Michael has taken several COVID tests. COVID is not the issue. Those have all come back negative. But it's a real shame because you lose one of the defending winners, the only one who is still who's racing here this year that won last year, Connor DeFilippi. And that car was fast, Calvin, because they were out in pre-qualifying this morning, and Connor was second quickest.
Yeah, they were absolutely flying. That BMW is really potent around this racetrack. I think it really fits the car in terms of the long duration corners, long wheelbase car, and certainly has straightaway speed matching anyone else in this field. So they were looking great as we now get release for segment 2 of qualifying.
Well, the lesson from Q1 has to be go put your lap down early. You never know what's going to happen with the red flag.
Absolutely.
Well, we're not seeing the big rush here, so I know some teams are on the back foot a little bit just in getting those tires changed over and getting prepped. So maybe they'll space out a little bit, try and find some clean air. I think it's really the key is finding a clean lap, not getting balked by any slower traffic with these GT4 cars intermixed with them.
We saw the number 10 TR3 Racing Lamborghini getting some repair work to the left rear around the diffuser. We didn't see contact, but they're going to want to have that piece.
That car's been quick here today. Altuve, I think, laid down a lap good enough for 6 fastest this morning, Bob.
They plan to be a factor.
Cars trundling down the pit lane. 50 kilometers per hour is the pit lane speed limit here this weekend. Must feel like an eternity to drive down this pit lane here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Looking here at Reardon Racing, this is one of the cars that is only running the first 3 hours. They're running for GT World Challenge America points. That was the Lamborghini we were looking at. And so, as a consequence, only a 2-driver lineup, and by regulation, the lower-rated driver in that car must do 2 sessions of qualifying. And that would fall upon Jeff Burton in that case, because it's still a 3-tiered average that sets the starting grid for this, and that's how the organizers have elected to work through the complications of trying to run a 3-hour race within an 8-hour race where you don't have to go the full distance unless you so choose.
Certainly is complex in blending 2 different championships together, but I think the organizers have done a great job with it. A lot of what-if questions have been posed, and we believe they've all been answered. So we'll get into that a little bit more when we start the race tomorrow.
First flying laps commencing. Beautiful liveries on all of the factory-blessed Audi teams. WRT with the pair, and Team Santalock in the mix as well. Gold Glory flying on the German sports car. It was a popular trio of cars down on Main Street Speedway last night at the driver parade. It definitely struck a nice tone with the American sports car racing fans that made their way out to be a part of that street festival.
When you see a top-line Audi lineup, typically this man, Christopher Mies, is one of those drivers, 32-year-old German. He's won at the Nürburgring 24-hour and the Bathurst race many times. Also a GT Masters champion, won the Australian GT Championship back in 2015, but just knows how to pedal one of these race cars, so familiar with it.
Winner at the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. He's won his class at the Liqui Moly Bathurst 12-hour a couple of times going back to 2011 and 2012. Just a ton of experience driving Audis, and one of the fastest peddlers you'll find.
As you look at the running order to the left of your screen, you see that the numbers each have colored backgrounds. That helps to distinguish the classes. The yellow numbers are the overall entries. Black is the Pro-Am class, gray for Silver Cup, red for the Am class, and white for the GT4 entries.
And the other thing to keep an eye on during this qualifying session is, oh, that was close, GT3 and GT4 not playing nice together. But if you see session at the top, that is the running order for these second drivers alone. We should see a graphic that shows the average time as well, and that graphic will change accordingly. So keep an eye out for that so you know what you're looking for. As the K-Pax racing cars are slowing down, I'm not sure if that's just to get some space. It looks like that's probably the case, but they've got a couple cars breathing down their neck here.
Yeah, you got to go. So certainly trying to back up and get this big firing off of turn 13. Let's really start to wind up for the start of this flying lap. So your starting speed down this straightaway, even though the stripe is about a third of the way down this front stretch, is certainly very important, getting that exit speed to start the flying lap.
I'll tell you this, Calvin, these 2 Audis have been on it right away. Mattia Drudy just went to P1, Christopher Mies P2. They're all down in the low to mid 134s, so they're not waiting around. And now Marcus Winkelhock, another Audi driver, probably not coincidentally, joins them in the top 3.
Cars are getting lighter, fuel is being burned away. And for some of these teams, they feel they're a little bit vulnerable. They're going to start digging a little bit deeper and trying to lay down a really hot lap. As Raffaele Marciello alluded to, hey, we're safe. It's just a good solid run. It's all you're looking for. You don't need the ultimate. It's in the pole shootout where you really have to nail that lap.
Again, top 15 from this 3-tiered session. We'll advance to that pole shootout, which is a single driver 15-minute session later on. This is a bit odd that from Andrea Caldarelli and in both K-Pax cars, it seems to be inconveniencing several of their competitors, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, certainly was getting a little bit messy down there in turn 7. I think Caldarelli realized that he wasn't quite into the sweet spot of the tire range there, so elected to abort that lap and just really focus on finding some clean air moving forward. He didn't want to be defending from cars hovering around his tail on a fast lap. He just wants to find his own space, clean air, not taking any air away from the front end of these cars, which is so aerosensitive. Ideally, they'd like to finish a lap, just picking up a bit of a draft down the front straightaway, maybe gain a few hundredths of a second.
American car with that classic Moon Eyes sponsorship. Famed for drag racing and hot rod culture out west. I learned that that design of the Moon Eyes was created by an animator for Walt Disney Studios back in the 1950s.
Certainly an interesting entry, and because of the logistics of that team being based in Asia, they're elected to work with Lone Star Racing. So we see red flags. So this second session also being disrupted. So the 09 has beached it here. I think that's turn 6, between 5 and 6, but getting back to that Craft Bamboo entry, utilizing a chassis from Lone Star Racing, a lot of the logistical support. So quite a testament, really, that, you know, a team can come over and utilize a car that's based here in North America to such great effect.
And that is buried.
It's Paul Keebler driving the Automatic Racing Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT4. Michael Miller and John Branham are the other two drivers in that driver lineup here this weekend.
The top of the charts there, 34.166 for the 37 entry, but overall, combining both sessions right now, it's the 99 barely ahead.
We saw Lucas Stoltz drive that Moon Eyes livery car to the top of the timesheets in session 1, and he's now with Amanda.
Well, Luca, we're just talking about your qualifying effort for the driver 1 qualification. When you look at, review the run that you made, was there more out there for the Mercedes?
No, definitely not. I think we managed perfect, the team managed perfect. I was on clean air and I saw everybody going out, and when we stayed, and we already felt yesterday or 2 days ago that the tire is 1 lap. Yeah, I really made it on lap 1, and I think, yeah, it was just great.
We've been talking about the Moon Eyes livery and how iconic it is here in America. What was your reaction when you saw the car?
I really like it. I still have to get used to the yellow suit, but the car looks great. I hope the fans enjoy it.
Well, Bob, and I'll throw this one back to you. I actually read that the die cast is going to be made of this Craft Bamboo Mercedes in that classic Moon Eyes livery.
Sign me up. Love it.
Great looking race car, and it is a definite change in color for Luca, who's been racing in GT World Challenge Europe this year for a couple of teams. On the endurance side for the Haupt Racing team, on the sprint side for the Talksport team, and has a bunch of other programs as well, GT Masters at the Nürburgring. All of these Mercedes factory drivers are incredibly busy over the course of any given season. Let's call the attention to the standings on the left of the screen. These are the combined standings, averaging together Session 1 and Session 2, and the number 99, Moon Eyes Craft Bamboo Racing, would be the fastest. With those combined performances put together, Lucas Stoltz and Mauro Engel, the two who have driven so far.
The 51 car down there in 8th spot with Ledegar behind the wheel for this segment 2 of qualifying is probably one that's a little out of position. They're not at risk right now, kind of middle of the pack of the top 15, so they're probably comfortable with that, but I'm sure they'd like to be maybe top 6 to make sure they're not vulnerable here as we go into finish off this sector and then get ready for the 3rd run.
No word yet from the officials as to whether or not they'll extend this session.
We saw the 2 additional minutes in Q1 for a red flag, but everything is fairly time sensitive here this weekend. This is the good news to report. The car is out at the gravel, and Paul Keebler now will limp it back, but you can see all the gravel coming out from under that car. It just collects.
He's done a good job, though, trying to get out of the way off the racing line.
Yeah, swerving back and forth to try to get a little help from the forces of nature to get that gravel out of the wheel wells.
You feel like you're doing a great job, and then you break for one of the corners and it all comes barreling forward and dumps about 30 pounds of gravel on the deck.
Beach comes out the front of the car.
That's a shot of the ACA ASP car that Raffaele Marciello drove in Q1. Timur Boguslavski, 2019 GT World Challenge Europe overall champion. He's the second leg of this driver trio, and on the average, that car has dropped down to 6th after 2nd in the first session.
See the 99 car up on its jacks, no wheels or tires on the car, so they may be comfortable with their run.
I suspect they must be, because if they were to change something, they would lose the time set previously, correct?
The question I don't know is if you can take the tires off, put them back in the tire ovens, and put the same set back on.
It's very limited what you're allowed to do, as Calvin chronicled earlier in the show, in between sessions as well as during, without the risk of losing any times you've posted up into that point. This is the Reardon Racing car we were talking about earlier. Jeff Burton and Vesko Kozarov, the driver. We do anticipate an additional 2 minutes or so being added to the clock, so keep an eye on that at the top of the screen. But there you can see the green flag has been displayed again.
And we've got the message on the official messaging system. 2 more minutes. Have at it, boys.
It's already up there. Just went from 3 to 5. So the time you see remaining on the screen is the new updated time remaining in the session.
It's about to get busy once again. Just 5 minutes left.
Time for 3-time laps if you hustle around here. Maybe the late arrivals from pit out may be struggling to make that, but guys and girls who are out first may be able to hustle around and break the beam and just sneak in 3-time laps.
We talked earlier about the Crucial Motorsports McLaren. This is the second McLaren 720S GT3. Currently 16th as far as the combined order is concerned. Kevin Madsen driving now. He'll share this car in the Pro-Am class with Brendan Uribe and Ollie Milroy. They raced together at the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa a couple of months back, and they intend to race in the IGTC finale at Kyalami in early December as well.
Brendan Uribe already a couple of GT America wins here this weekend, so valuable track time for him and the whole team tweaking on that setup. I think also for Brendan, it's a multi-class form of racing as well, that he's been able to really see where you can dial your way through some traffic here on this Indianapolis road course. Does allow for good racing, good side-by-side stuff through many of these corners.
Time to start those flying laps now. Let's see who goes fast when. Max Root, the youngster, hasn't done a whole lot of racing this season, but was the AM Class champion alongside Fred Pordat in this very car for Wright Motorsports. Earlier, going back to last year, racing in the silver class here, also teamed with Jan Halen. Very fast young driver, Pepperdine University student.
Yeah, been running in the Porsche Carrera Cup this year. He did do a GT4 race with Jan Halen at WeatherTech Raceway a few weeks ago and actually ended up winning that race. So he and Jan know each other well. Obviously, he knows the team well, having won that championship with Fred Pordat in the AM category last year.
Yeah, I followed Max Root's career from the early days. He started out in rally racing, of all things. Second-generation driver. His dad also competed. Broke into road racing with Kevin Buckler's Racers Group squad. And he's got a great little resume.
Yeah, he's really fast, really impressive. Ran at Le Mans last year. He finished top 6 or 7 with the JMW Ferrari Motorsport team.
It really got on the radar when he won the Hurley Haywood GT3 scholarship. That's something that the legendary Hurley Haywood was very involved in, helping to select young talent to help promote through the Porsche pyramid. That was back in 2018, announced at the 24 Hours of Daytona. A very fast young driver with a big future ahead of him. Let's see what he puts up on the board. Silver class entry, Wright Motorsports across the yard of bricks. The time, a 1:35.133. Not sure that's going to be a big improvement for him in this session, but still plenty of time to go.
Yeah, decent lap though, only about 1.2 seconds off the fastest time of this qualifying session combined so far.
Nobody yet has broken 1:34 as Lucas Stoltz did to set quick time of the weekend in session 1.
That's a good point, and as Calvin has talked about, you expect the times to get stronger as the session goes on, the fuel load comes down and the track rubbers up.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the ultimate pole will be in that pole shootout here later in the afternoon. Should be perfect conditions, a bit more rubber going down with some more racing happening before then. And they'll be certainly tweaking that fuel load to make sure it's right at the optimum in terms of the lowest level possible to get through and get that peak lap.
Here's Colm Ledegar, the newly minted GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup champion, part of the winning lineup at Spa as well. Comes across the line. That car combined sits 8th as it stands, which is plenty to make it into the pole shootout.
Similar lap times, within a 1/10 of a second of his teammate in the first round of qualifying, but still 1 second off the Mercedes. So is that indicating early that the Mercedes may have a bit of an edge around this circuit?
This young man here might be a star in the making, and this could be his coming out party. Dakota Dickerson in the Racer's Edge Motorsports Acura NSX GT3 Evo, has won a handful of races in GT World Challenge America, making the transition from single-seaters to sports car racing, and he's making it look easy. He's run with some of the fastest pros the North American Championship has to offer in his limited starts this season. Really curious to see what he can do coming around on a flyer. He should have one more after this one. Dakota Dickerson for the Florida-based Racer's Edge Motorsports team.
I think he just backed off a little bit there to set up this final run. Knew he had a bit of time to play with before he got to the stripe, backed up on that lap. This will be his hot one.
Crucial moments here, trying to clear GT4 traffic for this, the 04 car. Colin Brown, Ben Keating, George Kurtz, the driver trio.
Keating in the car right now.
Laid down a 137.0. George had laid down a 37.9 in the first session.
Here comes Dakota Dickerson. You see those bright yellow gloves. You can see him through the windshield. He's hard at work, muscling the GT3 car around. I'm not sure that's the fast way around, Cal.
No, that cost him time in the corner. It really cost him exit speed down Holman Boulevard here. That was not what he was looking for. Was digging deep, pushing really hard. He controlled the slide nicely, but that was a minimum of a 2 to 3/10 loss.
That car currently 13th overall and 3rd in the silver class. Now, K-Pax Racing. The champion-elect in the North American Championship, Andrea Caldarelli, Jordan Pepper impressed in the first section of this qualifying. Caldarelli further down than you would anticipate. The combined results have this car in 9th.
Needs a good one right now.
And that is enough to jump to 6th.
Yeah, a couple of tenths slower than Pepper had run in the first session. See what Bortolotti can do in session number 3.
Looking for more changes. Haven't seen many in the running order. It's still the number 99 Mercedes that ended the first qualifying session on top. And even factoring in both drivers, sits atop the leaderboard and on the average has a 2-second gap back to Mattia Drudi's Audi.
Keating coming across the line there. Did not improve. They sit 5th in the Pro-Am category right now, the 04 CrowdStrike machine.
The officials have declared the 3rd qualifying session will start at 2:49. So the 7-minute clock between sessions that Calvin mentioned earlier is running. Got to get back to the pit box, get the tires changed, get the next driver buckled in.
We're not seeing that big charge late in any of these sessions, and I can't remember if it was Marciello who said it, but someone did, that they feel like the peak of the tire comes early here at IMS, and so again, it's crucial to go quickly. Combined results through 2 rounds of qualifying. Craft Bamboo Racing still at the top. Marolingo and Lucas Stoltz combining to have a 0.2 of a second advantage over Drudy and Frines, and that Audi. Jules Gounon will be going next for Craft Bamboo. Nico Muller gets the call for the Audi squad. As you'd expect, the Pro Class cars on down to 9th before you find the top in the Silver Cup. And it's the very impressive Windward Racing team that holds 10th overall in the provisional pole in silver.
I'd say unless there's an absolute disaster, the top 12 are probably pretty safe. 13, 14, maybe vulnerable, but I really see Max Root, the 20 car. They've got Kevin Madsen, who ran that second session. Matt McMurray aboard the 77. They're only a 10th or 2 behind here, so there could be a little shuffle for that final spot in the top 15, but I'd say the top 12, with a just good consistent run, they should be locked in with no problems.
And you won't want to miss the pool shootout coming up this afternoon, because that is just one driver per car going as fast as possible for the final starting order in the top 15, as well as, of course, the pole being up for grabs. Position 16 on back, though, will be settled here in the qualifying session we're watching right now. It's exciting stuff. The teams don't have a whole lot of time to go to work between these sessions. Let's go down amongst those cars and crews. Amanda Busick, what do you have for us?
Well, as we get prepared for this Moon Eyes car to hit back onto the track for the qualifying for driver number 3, well, Mauro, you were able to pull it off in your section, but the guys were talking about how quickly the tires peak on this racetrack. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, definitely. It seems to be the first lap, so you need to make sure you get a clear lap on your first lap, which is quite difficult with the GT4 cars, and we managed that well in both sessions. So hopefully one more time with Jules, and we can book a slot for Super Bowl.
Well, it's pretty much certain that you guys will be in Super Bowl. Have you elected a driver yet?
I think we'll speak about it after, but as it's been mixed conditions this weekend, I think Jules, having been here last year, and for Luke and me being the first time here, I think he's probably going to be the choice.
Smart decision. I mean, they all want that ultimate run. There's nothing like it. Yeah. Low fuel, new set of Pirelli P0s and laying it down for the overall pole. But you got to think big picture. If someone's got a little bit more track time than you, might be able to dig a little bit deeper and find those extra tenth or two.
He's surprised at all that he said that Gugnon, though, and not Stoltz, who put down the only sub-134 lap we've seen thus far.
I think it's all pretty close. I think that driver lineup is very evenly matched, and as he said, he's got track experience here, so he may be able to put it to good effect. So these drivers, I mean, they're plug and play. I mean, there's the exceptions to the rule in terms of that differentiator, in terms of pull out that magic lap, but there's such solid lineups that these manufacturers bring to the table.
I got to know Mauro Engel a little bit in his Formula E days. Lives in Monaco, drove for the Monaco-based Venturi team. That question to him could have been asked in one of 5 or 6 different languages, and he could have answered it. He is really a bright, engaging guy.
Had a big start to his year, winning the Rolex 24-hour race with a Winwood Racing team.
And rapid behind the wheel, he won the inaugural Alan Simonson pole position trophy when that was introduced after Alan's unfortunate death. That was at the Bathurst 12-hour in 2014. And very active with his philanthropic duties as well. A member of the Champions for Peace Club, which is made up of 80 big-time athletes around the world committed to pursuing peace in the world through sport. Novak Djokovic, among others, also involved in that. But certainly a man of the world, and I'm jealous of that ability to speak so many languages. I think it brings to the question, what language do you dream in? What language do you think in when you know so many? You have so many to choose from.
Good question, Ryan. Let's have Amanda ask him.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
All right, not much time left. Should be turning these cars loose in less than 2 minutes. A few final words of advice. Calvin, as a driver, you've been on track before. Your teammate's about to go. What wisdom can you impart?
Well, certainly the track conditions, how it's evolved, what the balance of the race car is like, but it really depends what situation you're in. If you're already solidly in that top 10, you just need a good clean lap. If you're on the edge, if you're skirting that top 15, then it's time to pull out the ultimate lap there and make sure you lock yourself in. So there'll be some drivers putting all on the line, others just trying to get a good solid lap in. And as many of these GT3 runners have said, it's really the peak lap is just getting the clean air and getting it done whilst the tires are still in their best shape.
We've talked about GT3 a lot, but it's worth noting GT4, their starting field will be set by this session. And NOLA Sport came out on top in that first session, but they've dropped to third after Q2, and Smooge Racing has come to the top, and they still have a big arrow left in their quiver with Jack Hawksworth set to drive that Toyota Supra up next. GMG Racing is second with its number 8 car, then Scott Noble in the NOLA Sport entry. Bill Oberlin, Trent Hinman set to go in the 4th and 5th placed GT4 cars coming into the final session of qualifying. Top 15 advance to Super Pole. The rest of the field gets their starting position based on the results right here. And we're about to find out who advances and who is done for the day early.
Tires going on at the last possible moment, probably straight out of the tire blankets or ovens, whichever.
Exactly what I was thinking. They even let the field take off before they brought the tires out.
There's probably a little sweet spot here. Maybe let about 30 to 45 seconds elapse and then send your driver out. So essentially they're almost a lap behind, but got clean air ahead of them.
And we talk about the tire warmers. That is the case for GT3. It is not, however, for the GT4 cars. As an effort of cost control, the Pirelli GT4 America Series does not utilize tire warmers, while Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, does and has for the last couple of seasons. So that is something on these first laps when the GT3 cars are catching the GT4 cars. They need to keep in mind that the GT4 cars are truly on cold tires.
Yeah, the delta's even bigger than it normally is in terms of their potential lap time and rolling speed through the corners.
Well, at his big press conference at the Spa 24 Hours, the series organizer, Stefan Rattel, said that one of the cost-cutting measures they're thinking about is eliminating tire warming throughout all of the worldwide series. There's a whole lot more they're trying to do to keep that ever-increasing cost of racing down and make it more attractive to more teams around the world.
I'd counter the argument a little bit. I think the tire blankets and stuff, the cost has come down so much. I mean, in the early days, they were very expensive pieces of equipment. And I look at the mistakes that are made, particularly from gentlemen drivers on cold tires. I mean, one crash in one of these GT3 cars can be 100 grand easy, do you know what I mean, versus the cost of a couple of grand for a set of tire warmers. I'm sure there are systems in place that are a lot more expensive than that. So, you know, you're trying to factor it all in. I certainly appreciate everything that the series is doing in terms of cost containment, but I think there's certainly an efficiency now with those systems that they're using.
32 car dropped a couple of wheels a few moments ago. Here we start to this qualifying session. Looking for that open track time, slotting to the inside of 8-time Indy 500 starter Connor Daly, who's behind the wheel of that GT4 spec BMW for Random Vandals Racing. Now even back and forth just behind the shot, trying to get up to speed. The provisional pole-sitting Supra, that's what Charles Weerts is working by now, with Jack Hawksworth driving. A couple of ex-IndyCar guys with, I would say, a combined 11 Indy 500 starts between them, running in the GT4 class this weekend.
Just trying to get confirmation if it is Weerts or Mies behind the wheel. We saw Mies' name up in one of the earlier runs, so we believe it's Weerts.
The driver ID on the car window had WEE, so I'm going to go with that.
I like that.
Watch as it looks around. We'll see if it does. There it is for you. There's my cheat sheet.
I thought that was just the ride that he was having.
It does look like a lot of fun. He's right behind the Wright Motorsports Porsche. This should be Jan Halen now driving after we saw Fred Portat and Max Root already get their chances. Oh, hard on the brakes on the TR3 Racing Lamborghini just up ahead.
Halen takes it in super deep, loses the front end, probably got in the ABS there, washes a bit wide.
First lap of any significance comes from the Crucial Motorsports McLaren Ben Barnicoat, McLaren factory driver, a 134.4. That's in the ballpark. In fact, it's faster than what that car did in the last, either of the previous two segments.
Yeah, really good lap there. Ben had a bit of a moment in pre-qualifying here earlier today, got together with JC Sada aboard the AF Corsa Ferrari, a little bit of damage to the suspension, so he's trying to rebound here nicely and pay off the work from the team.
Jules Gounon behind the wheel of this Craft Bamboo racing car, which was mighty quick in Sector 1. Putting the power down. This is the driver in the lineup with previous experience here, but it came in the Bentley last year as part of the K-Pax M-Sport collaboration that ran the Indy 8 Hour.
See what puts together here, if this is the flyer he's looking for, if he's got one more hot lap in the bag, still got the peak in the tire. Goes to the top, 34.8. So that's about 9/10 off what they ran in session 1. So he's probably got a little bit more to give, but do they just say that's enough, it's going to lock us in? Or does he want to go for a bit of glory here?
I think that's the key there for this team. As long as they set a time in this session that was somewhat representative, they're probably safe based on what we saw in the first two qualifying sessions. The only thing that could have sidelined them was not setting a time. So no need to push too hard from here because there's no particular advantage to being first over 15th in this qualifying ahead of Superpole.
The combined time
Bortolotti is on a good one.
Time to beat 136.152. Excuse me, 136.316 combined to make the top 15.
This is Bortolotti being drafted in with this K-Pax squad here. Made the move away from Lamborghini a couple of years ago to the Audi squad, then returned to the Lamborghini fold this year. Another one of these premium GT drivers on the global scale.
It took me the entire 2020 season to get used to Bortolotti as an Audi driver, and then he switched back right as the season ended. Oh, big spin for the Windward car. This was the best placed silver class car. I think it's Marvin Dienst who would be behind the wheel now. Philip Ellis and Russell Ward also have driven that machine. Here's Danny Juncadella in the ACA ASP number 89 Mercedes. Second fastest in Q1, has dropped down a little bit since then. Currently 10th on the combined charts, which would be more than enough, at least for now, to move on to pole shootout, excuse me.
Combined time to beat down to 136.248.
That would be the bubble spot, P15.
Right.
Mario Farnbacher just bumped off the bubble, to use some Indy 500 qualifying parlance. Ollie Milroy has his Inception Racing McLaren into that spot right now, and that moving goalpost becomes a 136.1.
That's the real fight there between like 13th through 18th. Trying to make sure you stay inside that top 15, because essentially all of the times are then wiped out and you start from scratch for the pole shootout.
And proof of concept of the series. That top 15 right now includes representatives of 3 classes: the overall, the Silver Cup, and the Pro-Am. Everybody has the same equipment. It comes down to driver skill, and if you've got a bronze or silver rated driver who is quick, you can run right up there with the big factory guys.
This is a big lap here for Panis. Currently running 18th on the overall basis. His best lap so far, 138.45. I think he's got a fast one he's up to right now. What will this do for him?
Across the line, where does he jump? That puts him inside the top 15 and second in the Silver Cup.
An important lap there. What does Farnbacher have? That's not going to do it.
Stuck down in 17th. Disappointing for the Compass Racing crew.
Watch Mario, though. He'll dig deep. One of the best pilots in GT3 racing over the last few years here in North America. A couple of championships to his name in 19 and 20. He knows that car well.
Wright Motorsports now sitting on the bubble. Jan Halen driving that car. That Porsche 135.8 becomes the aggregate time that needs to be topped. Just in front of him in 14th, Kenny Habul for Sun Energy 1 can't be feeling comfortable either with still 6 minutes on the clock, although the trend has been to see the outright pace early in these qualifying runs.
That is very true, but everyone gets up to speed slightly differently. I think for the Ultimate Pros, that is their ability to just nail that lap straight out of the box. For others, you have to build up to the speed, even though maybe the tire performance is going away a little bit. Your personal performance is exceeding that delta.
This is the car that is on the outside looking in. P16, Ollie Milroy, who's been so impressive with this squad in limited appearances in GT World Challenge America this year. This Inception Racing by Optimum team has been super busy racing in GT3 championships around the world, with a focus as well on Intercontinental GT Challenge. Ollie Milroy currently 16th, Jan Halen 15th. McLaren trying to bump Porsche out of the pole shootout. Can Milroy do it?
Personal best in Sector 2. What does he complete the lap with? Not quite enough.
A 135.5 is his best, and that doesn't move the needle enough. In fact, he's now dropped back. Farnbacher has gone quicker, but not enough to supplant Halen in P15.
It's really tight right there. If someone can find just a 10th or 2, it may be enough to lock them in.
Mario Farnbacher moved his team from 17th to 16th in the order, just outside the magic top 15.
It's Michael Cooper across the stripe. Does not improve, so they're sitting in that 18th overall position.
But third in Pro-Am, that's the good news. And it looks like only one Pro-Am car right now is in position to move on to the shootout. That's the Sun Energy 1 car that Kenny Habul is piloting.
Cooper might have a little bit more pace available to him. Will depend on their strategy.
Farnbacher using all of that curbing at the exit of turn 10. Here's turn 11 up onto the banking, the south short chute of the oval.
This is a driver who secured a pole position at Laguna in the 8 hour a couple of years ago. Overall, won that pole shootout for Acura and Honda.
That was an entry that was capable of challenging for the overall win. The focus is on silver honors here this weekend for Compass Racing. Mario Farnbacher trying to bump Jan Halen out of the pole shootout.
No.
Not enough.
Nope. Half a second off his personal best, so I think those tires are peaked. Mario's digging deep, and you feel like you're nailing a lap, but you're just losing that little percentage of grip off for all of the corners, and that adds up on the stopwatch.
Look at how many cars are in the pits. Ooh, a spin here. DXDT Racing to 0-4. Colin Brown goes around. Colin and his co-driver for the full season, George Kurtz, they were part of the SPS Automotive Performance lineup at the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa this year. Valentin Pierberg and another driver whose name escapes me right now also was part of that lineup.
Cooper slightly off his personal best by 1/10 of a second, so they keep digging deep. The drive will feel like I'm executing that lap just that little bit better, but the performance is not there any longer.
It's hard to move the needle, though, as this final driver. You've got a lot to overcome unless it's a small margin to try and eclipse. Because even if you're doing your personal best, it still is factoring in the first two.
Yeah, you need 3/10 to move the needle, 1/10 on average.
Right. Jack Hawksworth, talked about him some. This is a car that came into this session contending for the GT4 class pole. His first outing in a GT4 machine, tied at the hip with Toyota and Toyota Racing Development here in North America, campaigning a Lexus GT3 car elsewhere, and has been evidently asking anyone who will listen, can I please drive the GT4 Supra? And this became his chance.
Just a mega lap that he's put together. 143. Let me have a look at it. 142.3. It's about 7/10 up on Jesbray, who's been cutting some wonderful laps here, coming off a couple of wins earlier this weekend with he and his teammate Kevin Conway.
And as you see on the left of the screen right now, this Supra is the quickest in the GT4 class. Trent Hidman has elevated the Aston that he is driving up to second. That car was, I think, fourth prior to this session. Bill Oberlin has done some magic, as we've come to expect from him, to get his BMW to third.
Yeah, some really good laps amongst that. Hidman's lap is about 4/10 off the lap that Hawksworth laid down. I believe Hawksworth's lap is the fastest in GT4 here today.
Yes, he is. To this point, GT4 car fielded by a brand new team, Smooge Racing, but they've got a lot of support in the form of Tony Ave's operation, as well as Riley Motorsports here this weekend. Bill Riley will be calling the strategy, and the Riley Motorsports crew will be pitting that race car as well, which turns that car into an instant contender. That, along with the driver lineup strength in the GT4 class. This is Trent Hindman driving for GMG Motorsports, currently second in GT4, trying to drag that car just that little bit further up, going later on the brakes than he has yet into turn 7, looking for those extra couple of tenths that might make the difference between P1 or P2.
Yeah, this is going to be a solid lineup, and Jason Bell is going to be on a high, having clinched that GT America Championship just an hour or so ago.
Jason Bell, Trent Hidman, and Andrew Davis. You're right, very strong driver lineup here in the GT4 class, and a good platform too in this GT4 spec Aston that has won with some regularity across multiple championships here in North America over the last few years. Hidman heads to pit lane. His job is done for the day. It looks like he will start second, or at least the team will, in tomorrow's Indianapolis 8 Hours, presented by AWS.
Why, that lap by Jack Hawksworth in the Toyota was really something. He had the fastest lap of the weekend in this morning's pre-qualifying practice at a 1:43.2, and now he's laid down a 1:42.4. I don't think
his best is a 1:42.3, Bob, so very consistent as well, and a few tenths quicker than the best of the rest.
Last car to keep an eye on. This is really the last best chance to have a change in the top 15. The top 15, of course, advancing to pole shootout. Ollie Milroy currently 17th. Needs to pick up quite a bit of time. if he's going to get up into the 15th spot. Jan Halen's been sitting on that bubble, and the whole Wright Motorsports team has been sweating bullets for the better part of this session. Right now, they are in. Milroy trying to do something about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. He's down on his previous best through the first 2 sectors, and he bails to pit lane.
I think Farnbacher is still on track 2, and he's 16th, so they're going to go as deep as they can, trying to take every shot that they have remaining to them to take that 15th and final shootout spot away from Wright Motorsports.
So no major surprises, I don't think, guys. I don't think there's any of the favorites that are outside the top 15. I think that GT4 battle is going to be great tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hate to call it a sideshow, but that is going to be one to watch.
That might be what you would think at first blush. It is the secondary class, but you go through the driver lineups and it is star-studded. Some big-time teams too, and the GT4 fight will be a fun one to keep an eye on. These are the provisional results after Q3. And the 15 cars advancing to the pole shootout this afternoon to contest those 15 starting positions and ultimately battle for top honors. And Bob, you called attention to it earlier. 3 different classes represented with Pro, Silver, and Pro-Am, each with entries that crack that top 15.
It's going to be a great fight. And I'll be watching those GT4 cars. Yeah, they're about 5 seconds, maybe 6, slower than the GT3 machinery. But that just means they'll be mixing it up after a few laps. And all of the GT3 drivers that I've spoken to are aware of the speed differential and how careful they have to be when they start reaching traffic.
As we get down to the back of this 39-car field, this is the order rather, those cars will start in P16 and beyond. Amanda, let's go check in with you. Our provisional pole sitters headed to the shootout.
We're right here on American Soul. That Moon Eyes livery sweeps qualifying, and Jewel, you finish it off for your team. You're going to take the Super Pole. What more can you give on this next lap as you hit the track?
Yeah, nothing. My teammate did a fantastic job to give me a good car for the last quali and Super Pole. We're going to try to give it a go in Super Pole to see where we end up, but you know, it's an 8-hour race, so qualification is not the most important part. The most important part is that we are all happy with the car. The team is doing a fantastic job. It's been 2 years, Craft Bamboo didn't race, and to come back for the first race and be on provisional pole at the moment, I think it's simply amazing. So well done to them, and well done to Mercedes for a fantastic car once again.
Well, Mara, I imagine being on the pole after these qualifying, I imagine the competitors here this weekend saw that as well. What message does this send them?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, we're here, and if we're here to try and win. I mean, that's the aim. So, as Jules just said, it's amazing. Craft Bamboo hasn't been able to compete, obviously, due to COVID for the past 2 years nearly, and they've given us a great car. For me, or for us, it kind of felt like the first proper laps in qualifying there. It was quite, you know, weather was quite difficult the past 2 days. So, first proper laps in qualifying, and the car was just hooked up and really good to drive. So, yeah, good feeling.
Well, Luca, it must be about the yellow here in Indianapolis, but when you think of what you were able to accomplish here today, how will you apply that tomorrow? Conditions will be similar.
Yeah, I mean, for us, step 1 is done. We qualified for Super Pole. Now it's Jules. He has to send it this afternoon. But yeah, as I said, step 1 is done, and team is doing a great job. And yeah, we hope we have a shot on the win tomorrow.
Welcome to Indy.
Thank you.
It's very interesting. Mauro Engel and Lucas Stoltz have a ton of experience as Mercedes factory drivers. Jules Gounon was just added to the factory driver roster for this season, and he is the one that gets tabbed to go for the pole the pole shootout later on today. Looking forward to that. Hope you join us for it as we set the top 15 starting positions for the Indy 8 Hour, presented by AWS.